Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. My new Washington Post column is about the obligation of people like me and of every senator and congressman not to feed the fuel to the fire of conspiracy online. You have to talk smart. You have to be smart about everything. One of the smart Republicans is Thom Tillis from North Carolina. He's our banking committee guy. He knows a lot about national security. He joins us now. Good morning, Senator Tillis. How are you?
I'm great, Hugh. I hope you are.
I am. Now, I'm not going to ask you to break the rules of the Senate and comment on a fellow senator, but I've been mocking Sheldon Whitehouse today because he's a conspiracy theorist on this dark money stuff, and he gets the Roman Ruska Award for the day. But I'm just curious, does anyone ever take other senators aside and say, you know, you're overdoing it, you're really losing touch with everybody?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I consider Sheldon a friend. We've been on Judiciary Committee for going on 9 years now, and every time he does his dark money pitch, I go back to him. And I've actually had a counter in Judiciary Committee saying, Sheldon, the Democrats and liberal progressive wrote the book on what you call dark money. Let's take a look at Act Blue. Let's take a look at Defend Justice. Let's take a look at Black Lives Matter. You guys have a network of dark money interest that spends in races. So the $7 million was spent in my first primary campaign to try and defeat me so they could put somebody in place that they thought they could beat in a general election. So, yeah, there have been several times I've told my buddy, we almost never vote in the same way on the floor, that, you know, if you're going to be intellectually honest with yourself, there's probably issues we have to do there. But if you do it right, you're going to end up losing. I mean, they consider labor unions as a noble dark money cause, for example. Look at all the money that goes into elections and goes into advocacy from that group alone. But for some reason, that should be ring-fenced from the discussion. So he knows it. We all know it, but it seems to play well on TV in a Judiciary Committee hearing.
Yeah, well, there's a question of whether or not he understands it with me. I just think he's one of the Roman Ruska senators. Mediocre people need representation, too. But, Senator Tillis, let's get to banking, because you're one of the smart guys. I want the audience to know, when immigration comes up, Thom Tillis actually calls me up and says, what do you think about this? So that he doesn't get blindsided. We don't always agree, but he doesn't get blindsided. Very few senators do that. Now, I don't know anything about banking. I'm the last guy to talk about banking, but I am worried about the regional banks, Senator, that there's contagion out there, and the FDIC and Fed rules, nobody understands them. From your perspective, and you've been doing this a while, what's the situation with the regional banks? Is it one-offs here and there, or is there a systemic problem?
Well, I think we're seeing after Signature and Silicon Valley, if you look at the risk of their business model, it was unlike virtually any other regional bank. So if you went in and saw Silicon Valley Bank and you knew that they had 6 different indicators from the Fed, that they had serious problems, the CEO clearly knew they had a liquidity problem. He dumped over $2 million of stock. He was either incompetent or reading the tea leaves and getting out of a stock position. Poorly managed banks, very high-risk portfolios. When you get into like PacWest, which everybody is watching right now, these banks are fundamentally sound. However, with this too-big-to-fail tier of super banks, and they're very well-run banks, having a guarantee that they cannot fail, when you start seeing the kind of froth in the waters in the banking sector, then there are going to be people moving their deposits into banks that the federal government is guaranteed. If you put them here, you don't have to worry about FDIC insurance in most respects, because we're not going to let these banks fail. The movement of deposits from regional banks to the GSIBs, the big banks, is just a reaction to Silicon Valley and Signature, to a regional bank that's fundamentally sound. So once you move deposits out of a bank, then they start running into problems, not because they had a fundamental problem with their business model, but because consumer and depositor perceptions are being influenced. It really begs the question about whether or not we've got to go back and rethink. I think we should. Too big to fail posture. Otherwise, the big banks become a safe haven. Assets move, solid, well-run banks like PacWest and other ones then get put on the brink.
Now, Senator, I understand that. Here's what I don't understand. When SVC's depositors got bailed out, and I point to Roku because I use Roku. I love Roku. They had $500 million in cash in one bank. And I thought, my gosh, don't they have a chief financial officer? The bank or Roku? And I think, why did we protect a high-tech company from the consequences of bad fiscal management? And Janet Yellen gave us a black box answer. And I thought that sent uncertainty through the whole marketplace. If people don't know what the rules are, they don't know how to bank. So what are the rules?
I think you're absolutely right. One thing that many people may not be paying attention to that I'm looking forward to is a report that we're going to get on the circumstances that led to Silicon Valley Bank's failure. I think we're going to find a lot of things in there. Probably not get it in the first report, but I'll demand it. It's all the breakdown in supervisory functions. Keep in mind that the CEO of the Fed board was removed from the CEO of Silicon Valley was removed from a Fed board position the day the bank failed.
Wow, I forgot that.
Yeah, you have supervision in there where they'd issued 3 matters requiring attention and then 3 immediate attention. There were indicators in there. I want to know, did they act on them? Were they escalating something? They said, this looks concerning. Then they got to, you got to take care of this immediately. I think we're going to find a roadmap of supervisory failure there. And you're absolutely right. When you have these large banks that were betting on the Silicon Valley Bank business model, which was largely woke-driven asset management, in my opinion, we have to go to the folks who had those deposits that were at risk. And so what part of the bank you were doing business with as a depositor did you not understand? Roku's a sophisticated business. I like them too. Got a couple of their TVs and my residence. But I think, we've got to wait until we get the report. We're supposed to have it by the end of the month, and then we're probably going to have to make more inquiries because the Democrats don't necessarily want this to be a supervisory failure by the San Francisco Fed. And I think that's what it's going to be.
All right, now I want to move on to immigration, Senator. You and I are immigration centrists. Now, my friend Thom Cotton is an immigration hardliner, and there are immigration amnesty leftists, and you and I live there in the center. It's not very comfortable because nobody's happy with you when this happens on immigration. But you began conversations with the Democrats in the lame duck, and it didn't go anywhere, and you were right to call it off. What do you think? Is there any way forward here? Because right now we got nothing. We got we got hundreds of Chinese Mandarin speaking people. The latest story. What are we going to do?
Well, I mean, first we're here because Biden rolled back all of the power or all of the great decisions that Donald Trump made on securing the border. We were at 500,000 crossings, encounters, which is a manageable rate for the United States, and Trump's last term, 2 million first year Biden administration, 3 million the second year. With the elimination of Title 42, we're going to be somewhere between 3 and 4 million. So to my conservative colleagues, do you really want 4 million illegal crossings a year, tens of thousands of gotaways, like the person who's responsible or at least charged with the shooting and the Texas murders? Are we going to allow that unless we get perfect? Then we have to talk about the reality of some immigration reform measures. We may get to that. The House has done a good job of marking up a border security bill that I like. And if they're able to pass it, they've been doing a lot of amendments in committee. They've taken out some of the ones that would have been poison pills. They have a platform to where maybe we can have an adult discussion about immigration reform. And we'll see where it goes. But what Biden needs to do now, and what we're trying to do now, I'm the lead co-sponsor on a bill to extend Title 42 for at least 2 years. The reason it's not in perpetuity is because we need to get Democrat votes. But we need to keep Title 42 in place. We need an asylum policy that the administration has finally been pressured into that says, hey, if you're from China, the first safe third country you get to, which is almost invariably some other country than the United States, you apply for asylum there, or you're not going to be entitled to apply for asylum when you pay cartels $50,000 to take you from Mexicali to the Yuma sector and cross the border with your suitcases. Literally, we have reported cases of that. So I think if we get asylum, if we get those changes, codify Title 42, have a discussion about reasonable immigration reform, we can get back to the Trump, not to the Trump era securitization of the border, but far beyond what we have now. And incidentally, I'm not doing anything that doesn't have the full-throated endorsement of the Border Security Council. Brandon Judd and those guys have been great advisors, and we're going to continue to work on it.
Now, Senator, I was unaware of the House effort, and if you get a bill out of the House, that means that you've either got a lot of Democrats joining with a lot of Republicans, or you got the Freedom Caucus, and so you'll take that up. It'll be regular order, I would assume. Are you going to send your bill over with the Title 42 extension for 2 years? Just into the weeds with us, please.
Yeah, we're likely to go ahead with Title 42 as an individual measure, and I would support the codification of the asylum provisions as well. We may just send that over because that's an emergency and a crisis that begins at the end of next week if we don't do something. So we're working hard. Can we get it done before the president rescinds it? No, but your listeners should take a look at people pre-positioning at the southern side of the border in Mexico, waiting to come over the next 2 weeks. It is astounding. And that's why that's why Biden sent 1,500 troops down there. You know why he sent him 1,500 troops?
Why?
Because the borders, only fewer than half of the border patrol agents are actually able to patrol the border. They're bus drivers, they're babysitters, they're paperwork pushers, they're taken off the line. And so this 1,500 troops may sound like a lot of people, but not when you have thousands of border security agents not doing their job, which is patrolling the border, keeping it safe, chasing down gotaways. But on the House bill, Hugh, you'll be pleased to know that there are members who have defended what we think would be poison pills for any kind of adult discussion about immigration reform and border security. So the baseline that I think comes out looks pretty good, and members of the Freedom Caucus have actually been a key part of the baseline. We'll have to get it over here. We've got to get 60 votes. We've got work to do, but I think there's a path.
Well, keep us posted on that. I always appreciate, it's very rare when a senator in the middle of a hot button issue calls up a talk show host and says, let's talk about this and that. And we did. And we don't always agree, but it's better to get ahead of the curve than behind it when it comes to center right opinion and conservative opinion on border issues, because we got to get this fixed. Senator Tillis, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. By the way, thank you again for helping our Afghan allies get out of Afghanistan. This is one of the heroes who worked around the clock to do that, and we don't forget that, Senator Tillis. Thank you.